Hey there, Mike Dunn, editor-in-chief of Tabletop, and I've got something very special to tell you about. It's a new crowdfunding campaign from Gooey Cube. It's called The Tomb of Gyzengax. It's a tribute to Gary Gygax and many of the legends that created the wonderful game that we all love to play. The link is right down here. Go hit it up, back it. You can't go wrong.
Oh my gosh, this week has been a whirlwind for myself. Has it been a whirlwind for y'all? Because, man, it feels like it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, Xbox is dead. Nintendo is dead. Everyone's dead.
PlayStation's next. Just you wait. Those decisions to put the games on PC, it's just the beginning.
It's over.
They managed to get one more heart pump out of with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Right?
After that, it's just total dead. We're calling it.
David, I feel like a bad teammate because I haven't read your review yet. What's the word on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Well, I am very tired. Let's just put it that way. I was up till I was talking to these guys earlier before we started recording. I was up till 3 a.m. last night putting the final touches on our video review, and then was up at 7:55 this morning to be ready for embargo. Not because things weren't scheduled, but every once in a while you hit a button and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So it's kind of nice to make sure on one of the biggest games of the year releasing that everything goes according to plan.
Absolutely. Everything is smooth. So everything was smooth, right?
Everything went smooth, thankfully. I was, it hits 8 o'clock. You click the link. It's like page not found. Because it's still processing, like, oh, okay, let's get this up, and then just wait a second, and then finally it ends up loading up, and everything was good. But I am very tired, not just because of the 3 a.m., but because this has kind of gone through the entirety of me having this. I've had all kinds of different projects, like building my new PC, there've been a couple different things. Funny enough, I actually got code before our preview went live. Like, that's how quick they got this in our hands. It was 3 weeks prior to embargo. Problem was that weekend, because I was busy writing the preview, I didn't have the time to play the game, and I didn't want to play the game and accidentally say things in my preview that was in the main game and get in trouble. So I had to wait a little extra just to make sure. So I probably played for about 2 weeks rather than the 3, 2.5 max. I put 52 hours.
Nice.
Into Final Fantasy. So, but there's a little bit of a story in there. That sounds like, oh man, yeah, that's a good meaty game right there. I, at the halfway point, get to it, and I'm like, I'm 25 hours in or so. I cannot keep chasing side objectives. Like, I just got to the point. I'm like, no, I can't keep doing this. And
you play enough, like you kind of get the sense
I'm like,
of what
you
they
know what,
are, how they work.
I know what's going on. My problem is I got to Junon, and I straight up got just totally sidetracked. Like, I almost finished all the side content in Junon because I was just exploring. I was like,
juicy.
What's over here?
Junon is juicy.
Well, I noticed that you're royalty now.
Yeah. But
it
was one of those things where I'm going through all of Junon. I'm like, I gotta focus. So I get to Coast Still, so I start getting a little sidetracked again. I'm like, no, you have to stay on track. So I start skipping all of the side content from the halfway point on. I literally did no side content. Like, maybe I came up on a tower and activated it real quick. That's it. Didn't do anything else. Still ended up putting 52 hours into this game. It is massive. They said it takes at least 40 hours. It's going to take you pretty close for just the base story, and you're probably going to put over 100 in for the rest of the game. Funny enough, my tagline is Victory Fanfare. Because I just thought that was just the best tagline.
Not again.
All right, so David.
Yes.
How is it? I need to know.
So I've been
nothing about it.
I've been talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth through our different previews and whatnot, and it very much holds up. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth continues on remake. It is a little more slow cooking than remake, though. I know that Jack has played it. Anthony, I know you have not gotten a chance to play remake, correct?
I only played the demo of it.
Okay, so the thing with remake was it was only Midgar, And even though there was some kind of openish level activities that you could do, like some side questing and whatnot in it, it still felt a lot more closed off. It was a lot more linear. It was a lot more linear of an experience, where Rebirth is taking on that. Okay, now we're outside of Midgar. There's a lot to explore here, and that was how it was in the original game. You got out of Midgar in 1997, and there was a bunch of map there. So you had a
Yeah.
lot more to go to at that point. And this was the next logical step, was to move into the open world. As I mentioned, that's part of why the story is a little more slow cooking, is because you've got more exploration going on. But because they've divided it into these big open world segments, that story feels it definitely feels a lot slower, because it's more of a, okay, I'm exploring this big open world chunk. Some of these you're going to put a couple hours into 10 hours even into just messing around in one open world area. So
Sure.
it's going to be real slow going, getting from one story mission to the next, because if you're like me, you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is probably where I'm going to move into whatever's next. I don't want to leave this area behind. And that's what actually happens. Like, for instance, in the very opening in the grasslands, you do this mission in Calm. It takes you out in the grasslands. You do all these different things. It gives you the ability to have the chocobos, which will get you across the swamp to get towards Junon. You encounter a boss, but like, if you just go straight through that, you're going to do everything like super quick. But as soon as you get your chocobo, you start getting these openings of world intel, of side missions to do and whatnot. And the best thing about it is the world is just so well designed. I mentioned in our review, there's a lot of variety to what is there. You don't feel like you're staring at the same spaces a lot. And part of that is the segmented world. It makes every new area feel a lot fresher, because, like, for instance, Horizon Forbidden West, loved the game. But sometimes in these big open worlds, you move to another area and it's like, okay, we're switching the style of world you're in for this, like, for the sake of switching it to keep you from getting bored, but you still almost feel like you're in just, this is the snow area of the same place I just left. Like, this is the desert area of the grassland I just left. And I don't feel that way when I play Rebirth, because they've done such a good job. Like, yes, there's going to be a lot of gameplay that is the same.
Yeah.
But because you feel that transition in between these open areas, it gives you that sense of, okay, this is new, compared to just the false, okay, it's snowing over here.
So is it like, I mean, I know you don't play a lot of JRPGs, but this sounds like a very Japanese video game thing that happens. You know, you take, you look at Mario games, right? It's lava world, the ice world, you know.
Yeah.
Is it that segmented, or is it kind of like maybe like a Borderlands 3 almost, where it's like, you know, you're on Pandora and it's this deserty kind of place, but then you go to a different planet and it is lush and green and all that. Is it like that?
So I guess what's cool about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth specifically is when you do the grasslands portion, you beat the boss that's at the end of that portion, they put you into a more linear level. It is the Mithril Mines. You go through these, you do all of you're still following your story beat. It's a little more, like I said, it's more linear. But when you emerge from there, you're in Junon.
Ooh,
so there's this natural,
like Metroid Prime almost
connected. There's this natural connected feeling of, I'm arriving here in a natural sense. So I still feel like I'm a part of the world, but that the world has changed. It's a journey, as opposed to just, this just changed. It changed because it had to change.
Sure, yeah.
Like, for instance, one of the things you do when you get done with Junon is you end up going on a cruise ship, and there's a whole level that happens as you're on this cruise ship, but the cruise ship takes you to Costa del Sol in the Corel region, which is like you enjoy your time on the beach and all this different stuff, but then you got to travel up the mountain because that's where the mission is taking you. And that level that they do going up the mountain, you end up in the villages around Corel with the broken down reactor, which also ends up leading you into where the gold saucer is and all these other different things. So it's really cool how they've managed to one of the ways I described it in my review is that they take you on the scenic route. Like you really feel like there's these story bits that are coming in and you're enjoying it. There's a lot to it and whatnot, but you're getting this like longer journey that is in this and that makes it enjoyable. It makes it feel a lot more loose because even the story isn't as intense in how you're having to follow things. Because again, there's a natural feel to it that they've managed to employ.
I got a question about the environments. Are they mostly cosmetic, or do they change the gameplay at all? Like if you're in the snow area, like does it slow you down?
Well, there isn't a snow area. I'll go ahead and say that there isn't.
I'm just
snow
throwing out an example.
That'll be in the third game.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. They're saving it. There is a bit of difference, but the way that they actually approach the change in areas is it actually affects your transport. So the chocobos of each region are different. Like when you're in the grasslands, your chocobos are just kind of normal. You're just riding around doing all these things. You get to Junon, and then there's some cliff faces, but because the chocobos in Junon have longer talons and stronger legs, they can actually kind of climb up the sheer rock face.
Sure.
So they've got that. Like in Gongaga, there's actually, I guess, like a backstory with the mushrooms of Gongaga and how people like to eat them and stuff like that. And they grow that you can get them fresh here, but you can't get them over in Midgar and all this kind of stuff. But part of it is the chocobos that are there have the ability to glide and they bounce off the mushrooms. So that's kind of another way of getting to different areas quickly in different spaces. So it's a really cool way to use your environment without making it an extra difficulty on the player. Like instead of, oh, I've got to climb all this crap. I'll use a chocobo and just bounce up there.
For sure, yeah.
As far as combat, and I'm not gonna talk a lot on the story. Like we know a lot of what the story is, but what most people want to know about the story is too spoilery. And
yeah, the new stuff, I imagine. Yeah,
it's
well,
good.
I want to know who
can
dies
tell
at
you
the
it's.
end.
I can tell you, it blew my mind when Goku came out of nowhere and blocked
Whoa.
Sephiroth.
Oh,
I mean,
finally.
it just blew me away.
Well, that's pretty faithful to the original, at least.
but then Yellow Lantern came in and stabbed her anyway. It's like,
can't change fate.
It's yeah, exactly. But it's like they do a really good job of staying true to the original with a lot of the story. Like I am someone who hasn't played the 1997 game. I did a lot of like outside research, so I know what happens in the game because I ended up watching Advent Children. I was introduced through Kingdom Hearts to the characters. So I love the characters. I learned all about the different stuff, just never played the original game. But I can tell you from my research, they've done a really good job at staying true to what the characters are. And the characters are the stars of the show. The people that are doing the voiceovers, they are phenomenal. They do a great job. Cody Christian as Cloud is amazing. He was amazing in Remake. But one of my favorite characters was Red 13 because he gets they do a really good job of giving him a lot of screen time in Rebirth, and Max Middleman does a fantastic job of voicing the character. So just overall, just fantastic. Something I did not realize is Tyler Hoechlin, actor, he does Superman and Lois, like in the CW series.
Oh, wow.
He is Sephiroth. Like, totally blew my mind. I think he was in Teen Wolf, some other things. Just was one of those things of, wow, he's actually kind of a bigger name, and he's voicing Sephiroth. It's just kind of cool.
How did he do?
He did fantastic. He's in, as I wrote, haunting and intimidating. Just it, Sephiroth is one of those
Sephiroth should be.
characters you have to get right, and they got it right. Like honestly, that all the characters are done right. I think I mentioned in our preview we were talking about Rebirth about a month or so ago. There was Crybaby Ned in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Where he was like, "When I cry, I play Queen's Blood better." It's just it feels like it's either, man, you really nailed your performance, or man, you were just out there, and that makes this all the more better. With the side characters, which the side stuff is really good. There's some really great stories that really get you invested even more with these cast of characters. Like they're still very obviously going with that whole love triangle with Cloud and Tifa and Aerith, like to the point where you're just kind of sitting there as like, I don't know who I want Cloud to end up with.
Oh, that's easy.
Okay.
Aerith.
Okay. I was curious what Jack's choice was. I after playing Rebirth, I love Aerith so much. Like her character is just so great.
I would,
but
roll
I also
with
love
irony.
Tifa.
Oh yeah, Tifa.
So
yeah.
like,
I would roll
Tifa
with
is
irony
just
though.
great.
Give me Sephiroth and Aerith. There you go.
Well, that happens.
Yeah. In a different
Moving
way.
on before I say something that I shouldn't. So combat. That is a humongous part of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I will argue that Final Fantasy VII Rebirths is the best in the franchise. They have done, and I say franchise, not series, franchise. Like they have absolutely nailed it in terms of the impact of combat. I don't know what exactly, like, there's a dev that sat down with looked at Remake. He's like, okay, how do we make this even better than it already was? Because Remakes was good. Like, I really enjoyed the way Remakes was, but in Rebirth, there's just a punch and impact that it has. It might just be the way that they've adjusted some different things like sound, particle effects, whatever they have done just adds that extra flair, that extra punch that just takes it up to just 11. Like this is S tier combat. And I love kind of the little mini game that is underneath all of it, where even the smaller battles, it's not just swing the Buster Sword. Like that's kind of, I did a lot of that in Remake because I love Cloud, but I also just, he can brute force his way through a lot of things. And in this, maybe some of it is to do with the whole open world aspect, where it's a lot easier to encounter things that are above your level, because obviously Remake being more linear, it's kind of hard for them to constantly make you fight things in front of you that are tougher, because there's no turning around, grinding, and coming back.
Yeah, and Remake, like if you play the hard mode, that's when you have to really change around, do all the characters, and really play the game. And so
Yeah,
it's kind of how it is normally in Rebirth.
yeah, it's a lot closer to that, because I found myself actually swapping between different party members and trying to figure out, okay, so and some of it is because there feels like there's just a lot more creatures, a lot of different creatures in the game, but I kept being like, okay, I can do this, I can use this ability with Aerith, and I started noticing, okay, this is staggering more, or oh, Tifa getting these punches in really hurts this specific creature. Like, just I started learning the rock paper scissors of a lot of this, and it's just a lot of fun to sit there and figure out, okay, I'm engaging in this is going to be a tough fight, I need to figure out what this weakness is, how to counteract these different creatures, and you even start to learn it without doing your assess. Like, you even get to the point where you start, it feels like there's a lot more cues in figuring that out, as opposed to only having to do it with the assess, because that was something in the previous game that I relied on. And it didn't always, like in here, you don't always get the reading that tells you this is what you're supposed to do. Like in one of the, I'm not going to spoil anything in it, but in one of the final boss battles that you engage in, There's literally a section where you just start going on the colors that change. And you're like, okay, that means I should probably use this spell and it's a weakness and will help me with this. And you pick up on these different things, and it just again just engage. That's a very engaging combat system to give me a reason to use a character other than just Cloud.
Sure, yeah.
Give me a reason to engage, and with there being up to seven different party members to be able to use, that's a very impressive thing to do, because they are very different characters. It's not that some are similar, like for instance, Red 13. I would argue he has a similar skill set to Tifa, because he's about the on the ground close up brawling. He's just a little more tanky than she is, and he has certain abilities that are just a little bit more useful than hers are, where she's not going to take a punch as well. She's not going to take the damage as easily, but her staggering ability makes it worth having her on the playing field, because she a lot of times will get that stagger in there from her martial arts. So it's these little, again, that rock paper scissors where you're just learning, you're figuring out. I did end up running a lot of Cloud, Barret, Aerith.
Sure, yeah.
Because I like having a lot of long range. Because I can sit back away, and because Cloud, he's just going to run forward and whack at these bad things, and it's like, okay, well, he can be kind of the distraction, he can be the aggro, and I can sit back with Barret and Aerith and just swap between it, just shoot until they look one or the other way. And that actually happened a lot. I learned very quickly, okay, if I hit this enemy enough, it eventually turns and looks at me. And then I would immediately switch to the next character and start popping it and let that character auto guard, because I am awful at guarding. Like this game adds actual abilities in on guarding. Like they're literal actual neat counter abilities that you do tag team. And nah, it did nothing for me. Like absolutely nothing. I think I might have countered once. I forget. Difficult? No, I don't. I think it's something you can learn, but it's something that is not built into my DNA. I am a button masher person. Like I can learn to counter.
Sure, yeah.
But and if I'm playing a game that encourages it, like a Souls game, like I learn, but a lot of times I dodge roll more than I parry. And that happens in Final Fantasy as well. I will spend way more time dodging than I'm going to with any of the other characters. Yeah, so like it was a lot of fun just figuring all these different things out, just giving different materia to different characters to give them obviously one of the first things I did was going, okay, I need to buy as much healing materia as possible, because I need to spread that through the whole party. Everybody needs to be able to heal. Because I do not need to be stuck in a moment, because there are different sections of the game where they will be like, hey, you're fighting with this set of people. And that's something the game does really well, is it has party locks where, hey, Barret and Tifa are out taking care of this, so it's you and Aerith and Red 13 that are having to fight Cloud and Aerith. So you're doing this, but then you go running into help Barret and Tifa, so you and they stay behind. So it's like all of a sudden in this level you're fighting with different party members at different times for different things. So it's a very you're having to pay attention to the whole party, and that's something that's really cool. Like I when I got to that final boss fight area, there were some people in my party that I really did not give a lot of attention to, and I paid for it a couple times in having to overuse potions, having to overdo certain things, having to be like, okay, well, this is the guy I equipped this to. I'm going to have to use this materia. And I have to pay attention as these ATB gauges build up so I can use my abilities. And it sometimes it worked out. Sometimes it did not. I got so mad in the very last boss fight because there were several times I straight up would save my limit. Like my limit breaker is like, I'm going to use this at the right moment. tell you what, that right moment, I used it and it didn't matter. Like it was like it just
Wasn't the right moment.
It's there's but I kept playing. The thing was is I kept going back though. And that's how much fun the combat, how engaging it is it's not one of those where it makes you mad and you're just like, I'm gonna quit. Like I'm done playing this.
Sure.
It's okay, no, back to the draw. How can I play this differently to give me that edge that I need to finish this boss fight out? That even extends to, they've got these synergy abilities that they had introduced in Intermission, where it's the tag team abilities. So essentially, when you use your ATB gauge, it builds up charges. And you have to, this is another whole thing of use the different characters, because each character has to have a certain number of charges to use the synergy ability. Well, I went through a lot of the game and was thinking in my head, okay, the only useful synergy ability is the one where I can do the most damage. I was a stupid idiot because I got toward the latter parts of the game and suddenly started realizing all of the different synergies and their abilities. Like there's one that you can use with Cloud and Tifa where it does some damage, but the synergy actually unlocks a small window where all of your magic is unlimited. Like, so you're able to spend materia. Like I was able to go and be like, okay, I can heal my whole party with this. So I need to make sure I'm paying attention to what I'm using here. Like, it's not just the knockout blow that these synergies are good for. It's not just doing extra damage. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it was, you can actually, your ATB, you have two bars on your ATB gauge. You can actually split it into 3 so that not only you're earning ATB charges faster, but you have an extra one, which was useful with some of the more powerful abilities. Like Barrett has a skill shot that you can do, which is or a focus shot, which is a staggering move that you can use 1 ATB gauge for it, but it's going to be a lot more stagger if you can build up 2. Sure, so if I've got the 3 ATB gauges going, well, suddenly I can build it all the way to 3 and still have and get 2 shots out of it. And that extends even further with some of the other, there's some different levels to the way that they've done the synergies. Like there was some that gives certain characters some health back, some different things, but it's just, it's really cool that these abilities are not just, oh, okay, this is just a tag team limit. Like there was some thought put into this of how can this benefit you? How can you even strategize with this new thing that we've included? And guarding didn't work. So I'm glad synergies did. Guarding didn't work for me. I really think that like there's some people, they're going to get a lot of boost out of like some of these defensive things, counterattacks, all that. It's going to work great for you. Does not work for me. If you're an aggressive player, there's at least a decent chance you're going to forget. I straight up forget to guard. Like it doesn't matter if an extra ability is tied to it. I'm just not even guarding.
Yeah, for sure. I have that problem in Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, but I'm good at dodging things perfectly.
Well, so, I just play too aggro. It's my fault.
How many characters can be on the field at the same time? You mentioned that there's 7.
There are 7. You can do 3 at a time. Just like the original, just like a remake. Okay. They do have some, I didn't get to experiment a lot with it, but there is what's called backline command where I believe you can actually use synergies with like there's characters in the background and they aren't doing like much of anything beyond like it's almost like they're in the battle, but they're not in the battle because they're yelling out. You can hear like Barrett, if he's not in your party, gunshots and all that kind of stuff. But like, I believe you can still use synergies with like the backline command so that you still could take advantage of some of these things depending on who's on the battlefield. So there's some use. It's just not, obviously you're not getting full use out of these characters that aren't in your party.
Well, that's the big difference between this and remake, right? Is because you mentioned the party locking. I mean, that's in the entirety of remake until you get to the post game is party locked, and now you have the option to do all these different guys, and so you have a lot of strategy you can do now.
Yep, and because of the open world, it just unlocks a lot of potential in how to do it. But like I said, with the way the game plays, like you said, there was already a lot of lock to it, so you really had no choice in thinking, okay, let's switch these abilities around. Like there really wasn't a point to it because for the most part, it's okay, what kind of materia do I want? That's really was the only big thing you could switch out and remake. It felt like here it really is okay, is this party member going to be better in this battle? Which I have to give them a lot of credit with the battles. If you die in a battle, you get the option to either immediately resume it, or you can actually resume it like before the battle
And swap
like
everything
so
out. Yeah.
it gives you a chance to like or you could go back obviously to your last save, like your last checkpoint, which usually is a lot farther back. So I'm glad they have that middle ground of okay, you can stop like right before it. Because it did definitely have a lot of those. I would get to an area, I would look to my right. Oh, there's a bench and a thing I can buy potions and stuff from, and a folio thing where I can swap my skills around. I'm about to fight a boss, or at least a very big enemy. So it was a little telegraphed, but I just said bosses. There are just phenomenal bosses in this game. There's also a lot of stages to the bosses, and that's what makes them a lot of fun. Like I guess that's just classic JRPG. Oh, I beat this boss. No, you didn't. You just moved on to the next way. You just moved on to the next thing he's gonna do.
Yep.
So they stacked up against the Hell House.
Yeah, I did. That was the Hell House was something in remake. I definitely
I think that's the best fight in that game.
But there are a ton of just really great boss fights, just fantastic boss fights in Rebirth. And again, that save system, the way that they have it structured, is really useful because there were a few times where I would beat something and get to a certain part and I was like, oh good, well at least I don't have to fully start over.
Right.
Here.
Is that all you got?
Anything else on the bosses? No, I just love how just they're these multi-layer boss fights. They're just so much fun to mess around with. And I guess the last thing is the mini games. That they've kind of gone full Yakuza with the mini games. Like the game's already that. I'm glad that they kept the whole quirky, weird style of Final Fantasy VII. Like people forget that was an odd game.
Sure.
There's a lot of oddities, and it doesn't disappear here. Like it's still that weirdness to it. It's like, oh, I'm trying to search after these like Sephiroth clones and stuff to try to find Sephiroth. But I'm on a beach, so I need to go and do mini games so that I can earn a beachwear, so I can actually go on the beach.
Yeah, well, like in
I
the
can
original,
chase down
10
Sephiroth
minutes,
clones.
you know, in the original 10 minutes after like Eris dies, you go snowboarding. I mean, you know, that's just how it is.
Yep.
This is what Aerith would want me to do right now.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that they've kept a lot of that same energy here. But it's in the mini games. The mini games are just all over the place. There's a lot of fun ones. Like they've got one where like Red 13, you're doing like almost a Rocket League kind of style thing. In one of the mini games, they've got like a shooting gallery that's in first person. That there's motorcycle racing, there's chocobo racing. They've got like this poly brawling like 3D brawler thing in there. Fort Condor comes back. Yeah, it looks like that. Fort Condor comes back, the tower defense game from Remake, in more of a 3D poly form. It's tied to some specific side missions, though. It's not like a go everywhere and you'll find people playing it, but it's still a lot of fun. My favorite thing was Queen's Blood, the card game. I need a physical version of this, like in the real world now, so that I can collect it. This is the first time I can ever remember playing a video game and giving a crap about a card game in it. Like I just don't care. Most games they throw a card, it's like, oh, great.
You didn't like Gwent?
I'd never even bothered. I didn't care to learn the mechanics, just didn't care about any of these different things. Here, like it's actually a part of the story. Like there are actually some sections that are straight like in the story where you're playing the cards and such, and different side quests and whatnot. I actually spent in-game gil on cards
David.
to get better cards. Like it became an obsession.
No.
It became an
It's in-game
obsession. Like trying to build like looking at the card that I just won off of a guy and like, okay, is this a useful card for my deck? Is it not? Like, how can I swap things around? Like it's a very simple card game, but it has some really great like new things to it that you, as you get these new cards, you're like, ooh, I wonder if I could do this or this. And it, I guess the best part about it is they're very quick matches. Like they're like 3-minute matches for the most part. Like you're not gonna play these for very long. So it's very easy to play it, but that makes it very easy to get addicted to.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun with it. And
Marvel Snap of Final Fantasy.
I need to go back, and there were a couple of players that I did not defeat and need to go. They're already defeated.
Wait,
just they don't know yet.
Okay, because I was like, how are you calling yourself the champ?
Well, I did. So there is a tournament that you play at one point, and I won that tournament. So
okay,
I'm the champ.
They're coming for your belt.
Like, but there's still like you actually gain levels as a player. Like every time you beat 3 players, like you gain a like status, you get a status upgrade as a professional player. So I need to finish that completely out.
What are the chances they release this as a mobile game?
I could see it very easily.
This card game.
I could see it very easily, and it's cool because these characters or the cards are like Final Fantasy characters. So like you're playing like Fat Chocobo and and Moogle and like all these different creatures. Like it's a whole lot of fun. It's funny because I jumped into mini games and I really didn't talk about like the side quests are good. The open world, there are some things called world intel in there where you're going around and doing like these smaller level things like activating the towers, going and scanning certain life stream crystals and such and whatnot. That it's fine. Like it's how you earn points to unlock Chadley's materia and such, but it's not something that I was ever really, I just have to do this. But it also only takes like a minute or so to do, so it's not obtrusive side questing. If that makes sense. Like it's not anything that I'm like, it's just repetitious, but at the same point it's like, well, it's also not that much of a pain to do either. So
it's like a Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, well, let me remind everyone that the pigeon missions were a pain in the butt to do, so I'm glad that
that one. Yeah.
that sucked.
Yeah.
like
the backpacks are fine though.
yeah, that wasn't too bad. But it's that thing of like, okay, this is really quick. I know exactly where these things are. Sometimes you even just come across them in the open world, and it's like, okay, I'm literally gonna wait for the circle to go down to the button and hit the button 3 times, and boom, I'm done with this. Like it's stuff that gives me extra points just for engaging in the open world. So like it's one of those things. Does it make the game tremendously better? I don't think so, but it doesn't detract from the game either. Like it's just extra stuff to do in the open world for extra rewards. There are other good side quests, and the mini games are fantastic. So it's like, okay, this is fine. This is just open world stuff.
All right.
Beyond that, game is gorgeous. The soundtrack is fantastic. I mean, everybody knows the sound. It's a Final Fantasy game. Soundtrack should be fantastic. There was some visual stuff with performance mode where there's some muddy textures and it doesn't look as pretty as it could. But so I'm a little bit like, Square, come on. This happened with 16 as well, where you had performance mode issues and whatnot. At least with this one, the 60 frames is very stable compared to the other one. It wasn't, and there's definitely not a lot of dropping, but like it's more just some muddy textures, some pop in, like again, stuff that isn't like harming the experience like too terribly, but it's like, man, this could this could look even prettier than it already is.
And you played this on PS5, yes?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I
So
think it's only
it
on
is
PS5.
only on
Yeah.
PS5. But good news, cutscenes are, I mean, absolutely, it's a Square Enix game. Like cutscenes are always like incredible in those games, and even the in-game cutscenes look great. So, but we ended up giving this one it was a 95 out of 100. Like this game is incredible, absolutely a game of the year contender. I was looking at a lot of the scores. I maybe it's just me. It's not necessarily. I was thinking that there might be some people that were harder on some of the open world elements and some of the texture drops and stuff than I was. But on excuse me,
Pleasure.
on
That's the first
Metacritic,
on a
I think
podcast, the first sneezer. There we go.
I believe on Metacritic, there's like 114, 118 reviews, and this thing is sitting at a 93. Like everybody's loving this game. It is fantastic. And also, I am very proud of one of the lines that I wrote. I said, "Rebirth reaches heights you'd need one wing to touch." Very proud of that.
Yeah, because it's Sephiroth, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, lawyer, for pointing that out. Yes.
Objection.
All right. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Very good.
Next
95.
week. Yep. You could tell they were confident in it when it's like, hey, embargo's a week before release. It's like, oh, you're
usually a good
with what you
sign.
got.
Usually, yeah.
Yep. One of the things they said that the reason that the game is just came together as well as it did is the team was a lot. I think they said 90% of the team stayed together from Remake to build this.
That matters.
Yeah, well, it's just another reminder of, I know that contractors are cheaper, but you don't get that same camaraderie when it's somebody brand new having to be brought onto the project. And not to mention, they built Rebirth, which again, I'm not saying it's a completely different game than what Remake is, but I mean, there's a lot of elements that are completely different than what Remake is, and they got this out in 4 years. Like that's not even counting the fact of they ported the original to PS5 and did a pretty good sizable DLC. So it's impressive what they've done.
It still feels like Remake just came out to me, but yeah, it's been 4 years.
I know it
does.
I mean, it was during COVID 2020. Like again, very impressive that they got this out in right under 4 years.
During COVID, time slowed down, so it doesn't feel as long as it's been.
Yep.
All right, let's spin the wheel. We didn't spin the wheel last week.
Yeah.
Let's bring out the wheel of questions.
All right.
We
don't have crotch questions on this at this time.
Do I have crotch? I can add
we
some.
Don't. No, don't.
Like. I thought you were excited about the crotch question. All right, here we go. Here we go.
Big money.
All right. What is the most useless appliance or unnecessary addition to an appliance you've ever seen? Now, I added this question because I was walking through Best Buy. And while they have some appliances in some Best Buys, I saw a refrigerator where you could connect your smartphone to it. And I thought to myself, why? Why would I need to connect my smartphone to a item in an appliance that keeps my food cold? And I thought that was weird and completely unnecessary. I didn't really look into it further. Maybe there's some actual use to that, but I thought that was stupid. So, what is the most useless appliance or unnecessary addition to an appliance you've ever seen, Jack?
I mean, you kind of put me on the spot on this one. I mean, like all that stuff with the internet appliances, like, why would you need the internet for anything? I mean, it's almost like this is like an excuse for it to break early. So, like,
you get a virus and like your refrigerator no longer can be cold.
Or it's like my Xbox where you download a firmware update and it's dead. Like they kill switch it.
David, did your Xbox fridge get a red ring yet?
It has not, thankfully.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, wait for the next model to come out.
I have not. I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say I have not got the Series S toaster, so
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's common. That's the next Xbox that Phil was talking about. I mean, there's like so many like use. I mean, this probably isn't really in what you meant by like appliance, but like whenever I go looking for like office supplies for like, because I work in the legal field, and so we have a billion like files and stuff, cabinets, all that kind of crap. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just so many useless like subclassifications of like different types of folders and like label machines and stuff, and it's like it's so. I mean, it's so one, it's so expensive. Like, I don't understand how you're charging like $60 for a folder that holds papers. I mean, it's ridiculous to me.
What?
But
What does it do? Does it like staple your folders for you? Like what does it do?
well, I mean, so like there's different folders you get. So like if you have like like if we store case files, you have like a big like accordion kind of folder, and you have different. Then you can get like different separators that like separate.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like medical
Sure.
records. This is blah blah
I got
blah
some
blah.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like different like label machines you can buy to like. I'm gonna like print out a label for this by typing this like little thing that you get, and it like prints it out, and it's like you can also like just use a printer or a computer, and I don't know, like it's like such a specific thing where you don't have somehow you need this, but not like you can just use your computer or a printer that you almost certainly have, and it's like I don't know why you would need to spend money on something like this other
Yeah,
than
that
it
sounds
exists.
exorbitant.
Yeah, so I guess that's the closest thing I can think of. I haven't really. Yeah, I'm not shopping that much for appliances lately, so I guess I haven't got.
I wasn't either. I just walked by
Yeah.
and I was like, what the frick is this for?
Yeah, I
What
don't
about
have
you,
the
David?
latest fridge firmware.
trying to. There's like, I actually had to go through like a list of like things that are kind of useless, mainly because it's like I know I've seen some of these things and I'm trying to remember specifically.
He's like
One
the
of
Xbox toaster.
yeah one of the things that like this was kind of weird to me. Like I don't know who needs this. Smart water bottles.
Wait, what the frick is that?
They're literally like water bottles that have RGB on the bottom of them, but also automatically track your water intake to go to fitness apps and stuff. Like,
Oh,
bam, there's so many ounces in this bottle. Drink the whole bottle. You've drank that many ounces.
I
And
don't
you
want to
can
ever
type
have to
that
micromanage my
into your
water.
fitness app. Like, it is not that hard. Like, I don't understand. Like, one of the others that's kind of useless in my opinion is like soda makers. Like, just go buy soda. Like, I get that some people, make like their own kind of specific kinds or what. It's not going to taste as good. It just straight up isn't. Like,
Well,
you're-
I mean, there's people who make their own like beers and stuff, I suppose. So
I
guess
get
if they can figure out how
that,
to
but
make
not
their own,
soda. Like,
Well, 'cause
it's
they
so
don't put-
cheap, though.
they're not putting that high fructose corn syrup up in it.
Half the time half the time it comes with like Pepsi like syrup for them to put it. I'm like,
Oh, really?
damn, just go buy a Pepsi. Like, but yeah,
didn't know
there's
that.
a lot of like super random things that you see, and you're like, I don't know that's just kind of point. Like, I saw a banana slicer. Like, I understand. Like it's actually shaped like a banana, and it's like the apple slicers.
No, what?
Like what you've
is
seen the
weird.
apple
Yes,
slicers,
yes,
right?
the apple slicer
That
makes
is
sense.
actually useful
Yeah.
because an apple is not a fruit you can break into segments with your hands.
Sure. Yes.
You don't just
And
like crush
I'm
it and
pretty
drink it.
sure you can get a knife. I'm pretty sure you can get a knife and real quick make very specific slices if it's that big a deal. That's just another random stupid thing to wash. Like,
It is.
like it's just
That's
a
random.
banana slicer.
There's a lot
man.
of kitchen
I'm not
appliances
kidding.
like that, where it's
It
like
just
just a
makes no
random
sense.
hyper-specific cutter or some kind of like measuring device that's hyper-specific that you don't really need. There's a ton of like weird cooking stuff like
Yeah,
that.
like, there's
My mom's
stuff
really
at
into
least
that.
There's at least stuff that makes sense. Like I think a juicer is largely useless, but I get the function because most people buy juicers and never actually use them. Like it's one of those Christmas gifts that everybody gets but never actually does anything with.
Yeah, juicers are weird. Like I have a Vitamix, that's super useful.
Yeah.
Juicers, yeah, I don't know.
And I get that for some people, certain appliances obviously are way more useful than others. But it's just there are some that just like you said, there's some things that it's just like why? Like again, a smart water bottle. Oh, good, it tracked that I drank 2 ounces of this, and it had RGB on the bottom.
You gotta.
What does that do? Like, what is the purpose of that even?
RGB.
You look
Yeah.
stupid.
It's cool on computers. I'm not entirely sure it's cool on a water bottle.
Here, I'm actually. If you want to pull,
Are you gonna
up,
pull
like,
this up? Oh my
there
god,
you go.
we're about to see
look.
a smart water bottle. Hold on, let me find this. Let me bring this out.
Oh my gosh, it's $80.
What? Oh my gosh! Look, what
The base glows when it's time to drink. To remind you when it's time to drink, guys.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's just the bottom of it. Like I think it would make more sense if the cap, or maybe the body of it was RGB. But
Well,
it's
the cap's
literally just the
removable,
body.
so I guess that's probably why.
It's got 257 reviews, and they're all mostly positive.
Mostly.
Well,
positive.
again,
That's
how many of these are bought? Like reviews?
not practical. Here you go. I bought the Pro. There's a Pro version of this water bottle.
At first, it seemed to make sense.
It just gets worse.
Oh, and it actually has a GPS tracker in it, so that you won't lose your water bottle.
I quit.
I think I win. I think I win this question.
Weird
Yeah,
water
I think
bottle
so.
for those with medical needs. Okay,
great.
that makes sense. I'll get the medical need part. You know, okay. I
This
can
is making me laugh.
understand that.
Customize your glow to match your style. Like that just cracks me
Oh
up.
my
Like
gosh.
that's in the actual selling. Like, oh, that's good.
I have had issues with this bottle intermittently since I opened the box. It's a water bottle. You shouldn't be having issues with your water bottle when you open
Needs a
it
new
up the
firmware.
box.
Needs an update. Yep.
It probably does.
Doesn't work yet.
What? Since I got it. It's a water bottle. You put
Yeah.
water in it. God dang it.
It's like, can you not drink from it? Like, is that like,
Which doesn't work. The RGB, the water tracker. Oh my god! Like, does it tell you how many ounces this is?
You're
Oh,
welcome.
God.
32. And you,
Look
but
at-
you, yeah, that's the biggest one you can buy. You can
Wait,
buy
hold
a
on.
17
Did you
though.
you scrolled past? It's like this bottle literally changed my life. This bottle.
Wait, where?
that by page up there in the gray box.
Oh, this bottle literally changed my
Literally,
life.
guys, literally.
Seems not figuratively. Seems extreme, but this bottle has changed my life. I had to say it twice. Oh my gosh. This is great. I'm so glad you showed this. This is
You're welcome.
fantastic. I'm sure the
I'm really
website is
sad that
fantastic.
I'm really sad that Noah missed this because he would be dying.
The world's smartest water bottle just got bigger.
Like,
Gosh.
I understand, like, there's apparently like self-cleaning water bottles that they have. Like, it's like the
That's
the
mildly useful,
the
'cause I
UV
do find
light,
it hard to
the
clean-
UV light and stuff.
clean.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a little much with UV light, but yeah, I get it.
I get it. It may, at least there's a direction here as to usefulness. Like,
Oh my god, the Hydrate Spark Pro is now available in
yeah,
32
the
ounce.
RGB just sends me like
Oh my
that.
gosh.
Just the extra part. It's just something.
I didn't expect to stay this long on this, but that was great. That alone was
This
worth
is the
it.
content you come here for, people.
Thank you for showing that. That made my night. Okay. We know the 4 Xbox games that have officially been announced. They are
Actually, that's
coming.
probably what we're getting next. We're getting an Xbox smart water bottle.
Ooh, yeah, that's probably the cylindrical one that was.
Yeah, it'll
leaked.
be in the
It's just
same
gonna-
shape of the adorably digital console.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what it is. It's just a water bottle. Can play Pentiment.
yeah.
Sorry, but yeah, Xbox 4 games.
Yes. So it is officially Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Grounded. David, you have the dates.
Yes.
Pentiment came out today. I know that.
Pentiment came out today. It's
As of
only
this
$20,
recording.
which it was already on. It was already $20. So, Hi-Fi Rush is March 19th. Grounded is April 16th, and Sea of Thieves is April 30th. Now, Pentiment, something that I thought was really interesting is Pentiment and Grounded are both PS4 as well as PS5.
Oh, interesting.
So it's not just next gen drops.
Okay.
But Pentiment and Grounded are also the only games coming to the Switch. Hi-Fi Rush is PS5 only, as well as Sea of Thieves.
Oh.
Yep.
I wonder if it's still going to come to Switch later.
I get the feeling it'll probably be Switch 2. My guess is it's a frame rate issue. It's probably something where they want it run at like 60. Like the game style fits, but given it is a rhythm game, like you really need that frame rate to be going.
I would imagine. Yeah.
Something they said is it's partially because the entire world moves in the rhythm. It's not just one character or whatnot. So that probably takes a lot of power for it to run. So
that makes sense. You wanted to show us something. I think it was Sea of Thieves related.
Yes, Sea of Thieves. It should be still there in the chat to click.
No, set us up. What is
so I really enjoyed how Sea of Thieves decided to announce that they were coming to PS5. They did a special video that they ended up dropping. Like it is just really good.
Let's watch it.
Well, I think it's about time we sorted that. Sea of Thieves is coming to PlayStation 5.
Just the everybody asking for it on PlayStation. You want to know something that is one of the craziest facts about Sea of Thieves coming to PS5?
Yep.
It is the first game that Rare will ever release on a PlayStation platform. They have never released a single game on a PlayStation platform. So that's pretty crazy. Just they've been around for what, 20, 40 years, something like that, and never put out a game on a PlayStation.
I mean, it makes sense. At first, they were making all their games for Nintendo, and then they got bought by Xbox, and now they were making games for Xbox. So
they've just been around so long. You think in your head, well, maybe they've done something somewhere, but I guess I think it was Nintendo had an ownership stake in them, didn't they? Like it, or some sort
I think
of
it was
like
something along the lines of like what they have.
They didn't own them,
systems.
but they had some sort of like investment there.
It was more like a second party studio, like Intelligent Systems, for example, who does Fire Emblem.
So it's cool to see that one. Something that really struck me on these four is they're hitting fast. Like I thought this was going to be like drawn out, like you have something I could see like Pentiment or whatnot coming in, decently quickly, not day after the announcement. Hi-Fi Rush is one of those, maybe they'll drop that in the summer. Grounded, Sea of Thieves, those seem like they might take a little bit of extra time. Sea of Thieves, I honestly kind of thought that was going to be later half of the year. I'm actually, and again, this is opinion. This is not anything that I know. I'm curious as if they are really looking at what else can they bring to other systems in the second half.
Oh, in the second half?
Like, it's just the way these are arranged. You're not even Xbox won't even be out of their fiscal year because they're a end of June company, correct? I believe with their fiscal years.
I think it's the start of June.
Yeah, start of June
July.
or end of June.
No,
it's one. Yeah, I was like, yeah, end of June, start of July. So it's like it. So the fact that these are all coming out within the last fiscal year, like it's just that oddness. There's an oddness.
They need that money now.
I thought this was all going to be spread out. So it just gives you that thing of, okay, if they release these and they feel good about them, do they have other plans? I'm not saying Starfield. I'm not saying big, huge things. I'm just in my head. I'm just like, maybe they'll think about putting some other games out there. Like somebody had said, maybe Gears might get that whole Gears collection supposedly that's being worked on. Maybe they do something like that for the holidays or something. Again, this is the first four. We know that, but they've never denied that there will be more. It won't be more after it. Like it wasn't these four and no more. It was hey, we're going to look at this. So, but it's just the time frame. It's it's just curious about the spacing because I mean you're talking. It's not even one a month. All of these are within 2 months.
Yep. I think it's just one of those things. Why wait?
Yep.
We got it announced. There already are finished games, so they're basically being ported. So if we can do it, why wait?
Yep.
So I mean, they
I think
fit
it's a good
within
idea.
this generation.
I think it's a good idea because then it gives them a little bit of momentum too. Like because one of the things that struck
Closing
me
out the
about that,
fiscal year, of course, too. So
yeah, well, it strikes me like because the Xbox podcast. I mean, everything else aside, I think that's like the least exciting way to talk about or announce something like this ever. And so like actually having all this like where here's all the games, here's when they're coming out, it's all very soon. I think that makes, I mean, it's semi exciting at least. You can kind of like get behind it, like, oh yeah, where Xbox is making their big move doing this. And so it starts here and it's kind of exciting where like, yeah, I'll get Pentiment because it exists. And then Hi-Fi Rush. And then if someone wants to like, I don't know, does anyone really want to play Grounded? But yeah.
I do find it a little bit odd just that, you know, they couldn't announce these 4 at the podcast. Like
it makes no
became this
sense,
thing
but
of like
two
the
of
only
them
thing I
were
can think
part
is
of a
they
Nintendo Direct.
yeah, the only thing I can think of is they agreed to tie him into there, and Nintendo had some language where they couldn't say something, and because of that, it was like, well, I guess we can't say anything about the other ones. But it was just like it was just kind of odd, if that makes sense. Like just the entire announcement was the entire announcement in general was odd. Like
it was a business update. It was not meant to be like this announcement.
Yeah.
We've never seen a business update before. I'm sure they will probably not do one again, but that's what it was supposed to be, apparently. So
it's a business podcast, just like this one.
It's just weird because it all culminated finally in a blog post, and that's how we found out exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
By the way, Pentiment's coming out tomorrow. Which I did buy that on the Switch. Like I put my money where my mouth is. That game is fantastic and deserves to be purchased other places.
Proof. You need proof. You gotta bring out the Switch, show us Pentiment bought. You can't just tell us you did it. You gotta prove it.
Yeah, no one's gonna believe you.
Yeah, you can't call yourself the Queen's Blood champ.
I will make sure and bring my Switch down next podcast and show that I have Pentiment on it.
Yep.
And you gotta show the 100% complete save file too.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put out a tweet.
I'm gonna have to have some time to like actually do it. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. We don't know if it's real. We don't know if it was officially coming out in 2024, but the what I hope to be the Super Nintendo Switch is delayed till 2025 already, according to VGC. Is this correct, David?
So, according to several different journalists, there was a Brazilian journalist that claimed that he received information from 5 separate sources, and it sounds like that a lot of the talk at GDC, or DICE, not GDC, DICE, there was a lot of industry sources where they've kind of had some different things that has been said back and forth, and they've heard it from multiple sources. So the original post that VGC had was that it was supposed to be coming out later this year, but now supposedly it's going to follow a similar timeline to the original Switch and releasing possibly in March.
Okay. I mean, that sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah.
My sources tell me it makes sense. Yeah.
and by the way, it was corroborated by Eurogamer and Bloomberg. So,
well, and I think the nature of these rumors in particular make more sense because they just had a big gathering of developers where they would all know because a bunch of third parties are going to launch their stuff with the Switch. So I think the general nature
is going to be like, hey, we're not
agree.
putting this out right away. Like, hey, don't plan on this for the holidays.
I just find it a little funny that we're announcing a delayed console that Nintendo hasn't actually announced yet. But no, it does make sense. I mean, I think it was EA or Take-Two was like kind of insinuated like, yeah, it kind of exists, you know. Yeah, we make games for all platforms. We're glad the console still exists kind of comment. So it's there. I mean, how old is the Switch at this point? Like 7 years old?
7 years, yeah.
Yeah, 7. So the longest platform Nintendo has had is the Game Boy at 9 years. So perhaps Nintendo had ideas to, have the Switch go as long as possible. And I'm talking about the Game Boy. That includes the Game Boy Pocket. The next iteration would technically be the Game Boy Color. So the Game Boy, was 9 years in existence before the Game Boy Color came out. So this is kind of knocking on the door, but I guess it's just time.
Yeah, well, it's always been the sales are slowing down. Like that's really what has been with it. Like everybody knows, like the sales have slowed down.
Yeah, well,
on
I
the
think I'm glad
Switch.
you mentioned that because I think part of what's interesting about this news, I mean, I don't know about this part of the rumor. The part of the rumor is that they're not launching it because the software isn't ready or Nintendo software isn't ready for it. Like they don't have everything they want to get out. But it's interesting to me that Nintendo I kind of suspect that they're dreading releasing this second Switch to some extent.
You think so? Why?
I do because every time, well, historically, if you look at the sales of every single Nintendo console, the sequel system always does worse than the original. NES to Super NES, Game Boy to Game Boy Advance, Wii U to Wii U. I mean, it's like that with every single system. And so I think they see that and they see what they're releasing. Obviously, know what they're releasing. Like, well, no matter what we do, this is going to trend downwards. We're going to have to take some loss on this. And so,
is it loss or is it just they just didn't sell as many?
Well, it's kind of messy with the business stuff. I mean, they're going to see it as a loss, even if it makes no sense. I mean, that's just how it works.
Sure.
But
I mean, the Game Boy Color sold well. The Game Boy Advance was a fantastic console. It sold well.
All of them sold well, except for
Wii U.
Yeah.
Well, the GameCube didn't sell well either.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of a weird trend because it was like NES, then Super NES, then N64, then GameCube. So downward trend, and then the Wii kind of revitalized it.
Yeah.
But like, so I feel like if it's telling to me that Nintendo would rather take a mediocre Switch holiday over like messing up Switch 2 launch potentially.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think because I think if they could, they would just stick with the normal Switch forever. Like they would just make because it's so much cheaper. It's so much cheaper to make games for it, and then they all sell a bajillion copies. It's just like it's a lot more sustainable than having to play the arms race even a little bit.
It makes sense, but at the same point, though, you have so many third-party publishers that just can't make games for it at this point because it just the porting is. I mean, you almost have to build a new game now. To go on that system.
For the Switch, regardless, you're almost going to have to rebuild at least a little bit.
They were already at a disadvantage because almost none of the big third-party companies had started making stuff for the Switch. So they started behind, and then
except Ubisoft.
The hardware
Ubisoft is always there with Nintendo. Oh yeah.
But it's interesting for Nintendo because for third parties, I mean, I always get the impression they see third parties as like a means to an end to like get people on their platform. But for something like Switch, where everyone has one, it's like, well, we don't really care if third parties have a hard time with this. I mean, we're selling 20 million of Mario Wonder or whatever. They got all the people in, and so the third parties, and I think you can kind of see it with just how they treat their eShop and indies and all that kind of stuff. It's like that stuff matters more in like the first year when a console gets established, and after that they're kind of like, oh, whatever. Like the big rumor from years ago was that they weren't willing to play ball with Take-Two or whatever on GTA 5 because of the Switch cartridges. And like, it seems ridiculous that they're not willing to move for like such a huge game, which would undoubtedly sell millions. But I also think they're like, well, we don't really care that much because we care about selling Nintendo games and Nintendo hardware. And so, I don't think third party is necessarily a huge deal for them. And so that's part of what makes the Switch too risky too, is they got to start over on that. So it's going to be dangerous times, I think, for Nintendo, or at least a little bit. I mean, I'm sure it will sell millions. It'll be successful to an extent, but I think they're also kind of dreading it. And this move to delay the Switch 2, even if it's going to hurt their holiday bottom line for this year, is like, they're a bit hesitant.
Probably won't, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is probably going to sell another 6 million copies.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing.
Honestly, what hurts more than anything is the industry here. because 2024 is having a rough time already. Like, we've had some fantastic games. Like, I'm loving the Japanese renaissance that's going on right now. Like, there's some great Japanese games that are out there right now. There's
It's not really a
phenomenal ones.
renaissance. They've been there,
But they-
David. You
yeah,
just haven't been a part of it.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, it just, we're getting a lot all at once is kind of the big thing. That, like, they have been spread out before, and now we've gotten, like, oh my gosh, so many of them in the first 2 months of the year. But like, we're staring down the barrel at a very possibly lacking second half of the year. Like, there's some good stuff to look forward to. Avowed be good. Indie, if Indie makes 2024, that's there. You've got Call of Duty, which not everybody wants Call of Duty. And then the rumor is Assassin's Creed Red might make it this year. And then I guess Star Wars Outlaws. And that's a lot of our
Star Wars
big games. So, like, we're looking at a very, and some of it is in retrospect, because obviously 2023 is ridiculous. Nothing can match that energy, but we're definitely at that point where it feels like, oh, we've kind of had a lot of our big game of the year candidates early, like Infinite Wealth, Rebirth, the such like. It's like, okay, where are we going from here? The Switch 2 would have certainly not only provided those humongous games, but it also would have been a big shot in the arm to the industry because of the fact of, hey, we could put all of our third-party stuff on this machine and sell on a new console. And when you don't have a brand new console in the holiday, and, like, no offense to the PS5 Pro, I will be one of the first people in line to buy it, but people are not going to be lining up really to buy new games on that. So that's not a new game seller. Like, that's something where it's like, whatever you got here is what you're selling. Switch 2 comes out, you're moving heaven and earth to have games on that thing. But it just makes 2024 just feel like more of a, let's survive. Let's get to 2025 where we've got a new console and we've got GTA 6. Like, for the industry specifically. Like, it really feels like, man, that's a really horrible loss for 2024 for the industry, as opposed to, like, it's good for Nintendo in the long term, most likely, but man, it hurts the industry, and an industry that's already hurting with all these layoffs and games getting canceled. I mean, we've heard of so many game cancellations and whatnot. Like, it's just rough out there.
Yeah, it is. Do y'all think the Switch 2 is actually going to double down on the Switch idea? Like, is it going to remain a Switch?
I really hope so.
That's
I would hope
the best things about Nintendo consoles. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what is this next console? Like, we know what the next PlayStation and Xbox is going to be. It's bigger and better.
And I think I've gotten into it before, but I mean, I'm hoping it's something different, but I think it's very likely it's going to be a Switch 2. And it's the same thing. I mean, the idea of the Switch in general, I mean, it's kind of a break window in case of emergency idea, because Nintendo had their portable line and their console line, and they're like, well, we can't sustain both of these, so we got to combine them into one thing and kind of do a Hail Mary with the Switch. And it worked out, and I just don't see them going back from that, unfortunately. I think that was like, there's no going back. So I think they're going to continue with the handheld thing, because especially, in Japan, domestically, that's what makes the Switch so popular.
It does, yep.
So I think that's going to continue to go with the Switch idea for sure. I'm hoping they don't do necessarily the same Joy-Con idea, though. One, because the Joy-Cons are bad. Do you
think they're going to do a entire, like, Switch Lite? Are they going to do, like, that style where it's all connected?
No,
I think do you think they're going to stick with, like, the Joy-Con idea of just connecting?
Question, because it's not like the motion controls on the Switch have, like,
they're terrible,
used even as much as the Wii. Yeah, and they're not great. Like,
to me, it's hard to do hybrid that way, though, because then you have to buy an extra controller if you're gonna.
Yeah, I mean, they make so much money on the Joy-Cons too, especially because they're, like, designed to break.
Well, that was my other thing. Was I'm like, if it's attached, I'm at least a little worried, because then I have to sell my entire, or send in my entire Switch rather than just buy a backup pair of Joy-Cons. Like,
that's true.
At least Joy-Cons are easier to replace than an entire unit. especially with
don't-
Nintendo's terrible system transfer process.
Mine wasn't that difficult. I don't know why yours was difficult.
It's just because it's a pain in the butt because you have to have both. Like they're the only company that you have to have your old system in the room
Oh yeah,
at this point. Like I can't just sign in and immediately have my crap.
yeah. I don't use the Joy-Cons, so I forget that you can use them as extra controllers, and I don't have anybody else to play.
Oh yeah, I've got a Splatoon Pro controller. Love the Pro controller. One of the best controllers out there.
Fantastic.
It's just that thought of okay, well that's another $80 on top if I'm gonna play docked at all. Like so that's a price, and that's assuming it's $80.
Yeah,
like it's not $100. So we'll see when we get there. But like I feel like you have to have those Joy-Con like detachable again if you're gonna go with the hybrid model.
Yeah, I think the Switch is the best console design ever. It's fantastic idea. I mean, if I were Nintendo, I'd just be like, we're just gonna do this and make it more powerful. That's that's what Xbox and PlayStation does, and it's not very creative of us, but this is a dope console. We're gonna ride this train as long as possible. Even as a kid playing, Mario 64 and like all my favorite Nintendo games, I'd have the moments where I'm like, ooh, I wish I could take this dope console game on the go. And they tried, weird stuff like Mario 64 DS, which that was, and then,
then you got the power of an actual console behind it.
Yeah, it's like this is an actual freaking console. I can just drop
Mario
it in.
64 DS was so cool, though. You don't think that was that was cool to me that you could have that.
Terrible.
I thought that was so cool. And then Metroid Prime demo. I mean, it looked like crap, but it was like, oh man, 3D graphics on a thing like this.
Well, Metroid Prime Hunters was cool. I played the crap out of that game, but no, Mario 64 DS was terrible. Number one, playing Mario 64 with the D-pad was an awful
I'm
idea.
not talking about that. I'm talking about visually. It's like, oh man, a 3D game like this, unlike this. I mean, that was cool to me. That was cool to me.
The polygons were smoother, but I could see like the layered polygon. It was just like, why is it designed like this? This is weird.
Do you remember the thumb strap thing they made you try to do to make the controls decent?
I know, yeah, that was an awful idea as well.
One thing I've heard that I get the reason, but I hope that it's not the case. I know I've heard in some of the different leak rumors and stuff is that we'll be going back to an LCD screen, that they won't be using an OLED in the first iteration, and that makes me sad because the OLED is so good on the Switch, and it's like that. I feel like it's, even if it's a better console, like that's a downgrade. It's still a downgrade to have to go back to a screen that isn't as good.
Yeah, I don't know how much it costs to have an OLED,
and I get it. It could be cost prohibitive, but like that's almost one of those moments where you're like, give us the option, like ship two units, ship a regular and an OLED at launch.
I'd pay a $50 difference for an OLED.
Easily.
OLED. I didn't think it would be that much of a difference. I was like, holy frick, this is
a lot more than you think.
So
yeah,
clean.
I
the
know.
colors are so vibrant and brilliant, and I usually don't really care about the graphics per se, but I was like, oh, I want to play on handheld a little bit more often now because this looks really good.
Yep, it was well worth getting the Legend of Zelda one. I was very happy to have that one.
And the touch is more responsive.
Yeah,
not many people mentioned that, but the touch screen was more responsive with the OLED. Yeah, so going back to a LCD where LED is weird. But it's Nintendo. They're gonna make it as cheap as possible because that's their audience. They don't really care about that stuff for the most part until later.
It'll be very interesting. I know there's a rumored leak that Nintendo might be looking to reveal in June, like actually say what's going on, and it's an actual credible person. So we'll see. And Nintendo likes the Nintendo, so who knows what they're even thinking.
I'm trying to remember back when there was an E3 and Nintendo would announce their consoles. I'm trying to remember like when they actually launched. I don't have the console dates pulled up.
I think
all I remember
Wii U was
Switch.
November.
Wii wasn't. Yeah, Wii was November, but was that announced at E3?
I think so.
I
I know
think
that
it was.
3DS had
right,
like
yeah.
a weird. 3DS was released at a weird time. I think it was like winter-ish. I think like
All I
So-
remember is
yeah.
the Wii, the Switch one, and that was like January. It got announced, and then December, January, and then it was actually out in end of February. Like it was really quick turnaround. I remember.
Yeah,
on
that one was a quick turnaround. I remember that. I remember the Wii was E3. And then that came out. When did that come out? I should know that, but I
I
don't.
mean, that's a November one too.
Yeah, it was in November.
Okay. So it's possible. Okay, so it's possible they kind of go with the whole summer programming thing. Let's join the summer jams stuff and announce what we're doing, and then it comes out.
Wii U was announced at E3 2011.
Okay, and it came out in November.
Yes, and people knew that it was coming out in April though. Like they released an actual statement that they were going to announce it at E3.
Oh, okay.
So there was actually like an investors thing and stuff like that. So
okay. So yeah, they could do something during the summer. I mean, why not?
I mean,
Everybody's
again,
paying
Nintendo's
attention
going to
during that time.
Nintendo. They'll do whatever they want. Like
Yeah, and
they could do this a year ahead. They could do this like 2 months ahead. It's whatever they want.
Yeah,
They're one of the few companies I could see shadow dropping a system. It won't happen.
No,
It's just they're the
no.
only company that I could see doing it. Like,
No, they
Sega
would
did
never
it.
do
No,
that.
it turned out badly for them.
Yeah, Sega was on a different level because developers and publishers didn't even know it was dropping. So
Yeah.
like, that was
that's
awful.
very different.
Yeah, that was bad. Nintendo wouldn't at least make that mistake, but I don't think they would shadow drop a console because you gotta let people prepare their wallets, you know. So that's huge. All right, we'll stop there for tonight. It was good.
All right.
We'll see what the news
Xbox
brings
is
us next
dead.
week. I
Long
think,
live Xbox.
huh?
Xbox is dead. Long live Xbox.
Yeah, I think we're done with the console news for a little while. So next week, I think we'll be back to games. I know I've been playing Prince of Persia, so I want to get a little bit further before I talk about that for myself. Jack, you reviewed it and whatnot. I think you'll be interested in the thoughts that I have when we talk about it. So yeah,
I'm just gonna bring popcorn just because.
Or maybe we agree.
Oh man.
I don't know.
It's
Jack
funny.
doesn't know how he feels about that.
It's funny.
We'll
I've been
see.
playing Momodaro, so we can do like the reverse of what we did last time.
Oh, you played that one?
Yeah. I just
Okay,
beat it
yeah.
this
Oh,
night-
that'd be
tonight,
fun.
yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do that. I talked about Momodoro. You talk about Momodoro. All right, and I'll talk about Prince of Persia. Yeah, that'll be fun. Dave is probably gonna take a break, so
Jeez, I need one.
yeah, we will
Play some Call of
see.
Duty. I literally have not touched that game in a second, and this new season just dropped in. It of course it would be like the best season we've had in forever.
Yeah,
Like the one that I can't actually engage in is the best season that it's come out in years.
yeah. You better get on that.
Like, I got to
so-
give them credit. The last two seasons, for the 2 seasons that are available for Modern Warfare 3, they're good. They've been very good.
Well, okay. So speaking of Call of Duty, I have also, I don't mean to extend the podcast right when we're ending, but I did play a bit of Overwatch 2, and I would say they have improved the matchmaking. So I'm kind of back into that again.
Nice.
So, so that feels good. I still like Overwatch. I just hated the matchmaking. It was making my life miserable. So next week's gonna be fun. All right. That'll do it for us. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you later. Deuces.
Peace.
Yeah.